This is admissions control at Hippocampus Academy. This video is taken from an actual consultation with an elite admissions coach. Listen carefully as he discusses how he helps students get into the most elite universities in the world and what he learned from sitting in on final admissions decisions at these schools. This is part 4 of the conversation, in which he talks more about strategizing, storytelling, and why it's important to catch your admissions officer's eye.
The fact that you have put so much work into it already and you have already started reflecting on these questions, you have dug through stuff, like we're not going to just rehash everything you've already done. I'm not going to make you like sit and write me all those essays again. What I see when we get together after something like that is, A, you're going to really be able to quickly tell me, okay, well, yeah, I do have this story, and we will be able to dig deeper into those things and start teasing out these more complicated storylines or connections between them, or find the deeper stuff. Whenever I was a reader for AP exams, I learned that everybody writes a really similar essay because you've learned the same things, you've kind of got the same ways of analyzing things. So when I was grading these essays for the AP exams and teaching these AP intensive courses, I would always tell students, okay, imagine it's 3 a.m. Your reader has just read 1,000 of these essays. They all looked really similar. I had a colleague once tell me like it was 3 a.m. Their baby was sick. They were sick. They were tired and hungry. Their coffee pot broke, and she said I was just crying and I was writing up my letter of resignation right then and apologizing. I just can't handle this. And I picked up the next essay while I tried to think of what to write next in my email. And that first line caught me so hard that I wanted to keep reading and remembered why I love this and all that cheesy stuff. But I always think of that because I tell admissions officers that they all laugh. They all have a story like that. So I was always tell my students, take the 30 seconds or the minute to run through your top 2 or 3 ideas and then see if there's something just below that. Not that you're going to get points taken off because you've written the same thing everybody else wrote about, but because if you can capture their attention in this way, we have little leeway in giving you extra points if you wow us with your thought process or whatever the case may be. And it's really similar with this. Nobody's going to reject you because you write about being in the band or write about soccer or this or that, but we're going to have a much better chance of capturing their attention and doing all that other stuff if you do that deeper digging. If you had to spend half of the time kind of thinking and figuring out like, well, I don't even know when I've had a challenge, right? Or I don't even know who I'm grateful to. Sometimes we have to really work to get there. My full-time students do a Common App brainstorming session like over spring break. We do that workshop, okay? And that terrifies everyone because they're like, oh, I'm 6 months behind, right? But what we do then is we set that aside. Okay. We set that aside for a really long time. I do that with those students because when you can set something aside and come back to it, they are learning and growing and finding new things over summer, right? And with those students, like it helps me be able to help them figure out what they're going to do for their summer activities. And like if we have a really good story, right? But maybe you need something at the end, why don't you go try to find something you can do this summer that's going to give us a really good ending to this essay? So we're not working on the Common App every week for 8 months. They put it away and then we come back to it around this time. That's what I'm doing with those students right now. We're kind of wrapping those up and trying to figure out where the final touches are going to be. But then we're going to look at it just one last time. We're going to sit down for 1 hour before they submit. And we're going to just, is there anything else you've learned? What have you learned in band these last 3 months that we might be able to tie in to show them an even more recent picture of you? And then we just finalize it, we polish it. So, what I would suggest, like we were already working together and this was your schedule, this is what I would want to do. I would say, let's meet tomorrow if you can. Let's do this brainstorming meeting. Let's figure out what the couple of stories are because it would take me about 2 hours to go through all those drafts and give you meaningful feedback. And I'd still be asking you a ton of questions. And like, tell me this later. So let's figure out if you already have an essay. If we do it early in the morning, then maybe sit down for an hour, write that practice draft that we come up with. You don't have to be on best form. A perfect practice draft is messy. Okay. It's whatever just comes up. Then you're going to have to put it away. Okay. And we're not going to put it away for 6 months, but you're going to put it away for a week. And a week is generally what I ask for. 2 weeks if we have it, definitely a week if we don't. And so then you can go and do all your stuff you have to do this week and not stress about it. I'll give you some reflective exercises, low key things you can do in the evenings. And it just is like read through your notes and add any more notes. It takes like 5 or 10 minutes. If there are specific things we're looking for, you'll know all of that. Okay. You'll have a plan. But again, just a few minutes every night because reflection happens when it's compounded. You don't want to try to cram reflection. It's kind of stubborn in that way. I would say let's meet again in a week, workshop that. Let's review what you came up with in your reflections this week, and let's decide, is this the essay we want to write? And then at that point, you would do a revision based on whatever we come up with there that's still left for you to do. Again, you've done so much work already, it probably wouldn't be a lot. It would just be filling in some of these, like, this is a little vague. Think about what this looks like whenever you're happy. What do you do? If it's a film, and we see a character getting happy, right? Maybe they smile, but maybe they, I don't know, pet a puppy, or I don't know. But what does this look like specifically for you? These little things. What are we? I don't know why I'm stuck on puppies today. Uh, sorry. And then we move right into supplements because then we want to set that rough draft aside so you can come back and look at it with fresh eyes. It's kind of like when your teacher is like, pass papers with your neighbor to grade. It's not because they don't trust you. They're going to see your paper. They're going to know if you gave yourself the right answer. They do that because our brain is really good at thinking it knows what's going on. Our brain is really good at thinking it knows what it wrote, not always so good at seeing what's actually there on the page. So being able to come back to it is going to give you that outside perspective a little bit. Your brain has to kind of forget it so it can come back to it fresh. And then you're going to see stuff like, okay, well, this was kind of weird that I said this. What I really meant was this. And again, that's like half an hour, right? Little bitty things, but necessary things if you're going to show the kind of depth of reflection and make the interesting connections to give you the strongest essay. So I can't promise that you're going to have a 100% complete draft ready to go at the end of 2 weeks, but you don't need to. All you need is half an hour at some point for the deadline to look back at it again. You're going to have a finished rough draft that's going to be really strong. I have a good feeling about that. I would start the supplements then because now we know this is showing this about me and showing this about me and showing this about me. Let's go back to those notes we made in the brainstorming meeting. Let's see where these other things fit in. Let's see how the reflection I've been doing that seemed like I was just sitting and staring out the window. Now, what do I think about these other things? Um, I always tell my parents for my full-time students that it's going to look like we're not getting anything done all summer because we're meeting and we're brainstorming these supplements and we're talking, but I'm not making them write anything because listen, I have 5 kids and I learned very early that like I can be a jerk or I can have fun with my kids, right? And if I do it right, I can get the same results out of them either way. I don't think it's in anybody's best interest to sit and write 500 drafts of something when you don't know what you're doing. That's just cruel and unusual punishment. Then I have to go back every time and be like, no, that's wrong, right? No, actually, let's not do this. Just taking a little bit of time and teaching you the things you don't yet know about how to do this. Then when you sit down to write it, you're going to have the you piece, you're going to have the reflective piece, you're going to know where things should go, you're going to have a better idea, you're going to have looked at some sample essays that I'm going to send you over, and then it's going to come really easily. That rough draft is going to come like straight away. Um, I just want to be upfront about that. I'm going to have students who start much later than you, and we're still going to get them a good application. Okay, and I do work on the whole application, so I can help you strategize all the rest of that. But we're going to be saving time because again, I'm already going to know you. I'm already going to know everything you've done. I'm already going to know what it means to you. We're already going to have a good idea of what's important and then where the gaps are we need to fill in. So when we sit down to do that, like activities and honors list, and start thinking about stuff like that, again, that's just going to come really quick because we've already done the hard work. We're not going to have to sit and talk about all of that then and stress about it for 3 weeks because we've already been talking about it. So we would just figure that out. We would be meeting. I would be giving some assignments. Again, I don't like to waste anybody's time. We don't need to meet up so that we can decide what you're going to write about next. All of that can be handled offline. Um, Here's what you need to do. Just go and do this. Go and write this. And then this and this. And then let's meet up and let's go over what you have where you can utilize what I'm going to bring to the table the best way, where I can go through things with you. The way I do supplements generally is we look at that big theme: community, diversity, challenge, why school, why this, why major. And we figure out like what those big stories are. You're going to write a practice draft that covers all of that stuff. And then you're going to look at all of that and we're going to figure out how do we personalize this big story for exactly what this school wants to know because they're asking you exactly what they want to know. Then she goes and does the writing on her own, and then we get together and workshop that live so that we can look at them all and make sure that she's using them to the best of her abilities. My process. Let's start with this low pressure thing. That's why I do the practice draft the way I do it. It's going to end up a supplement if it doesn't end up your Common App. A lot of supplementary essays are going to be able to be recycled a little bit. But let's start with this low pressure thing because this is just too much. And then let's come back and let's see what's happening. I'm digging even deeper and just get you caught up to where I think you want to be right now. And I want to say, I would have told you this at some point anyway, and I'll tell you again probably, but my suggestions are suggestions. You've got to trust me. I've got to trust you. And if I'm making this suggestion, that's not code word for you must do this. Okay. Sometimes it's just, hey, this just popped in my head while we're having this conversation. What do you think about this? And be honest with me because I'm wrong sometimes. Weird, right? But I can't know what you're thinking about it unless I put it out there, right? The same way I'm asking you to just bear it all and tell me whatever pops in your head and make yourself vulnerable. That's what I'm doing with you whenever I kind of throw suggestions. Like you could go home and laugh at me, right? Like, can you believe this dumb suggestion? Um, but sometimes it is a good suggestion. And sometimes it's a good suggestion because you hear it and you're like, ooh, no, that's completely off the mark. And then what happens is we're both a little bit closer to whatever the mark is. So if I were to theoretically say, what would you think about doing this for this supplement instead? I'm going to trust you and respect you if you're like, no, I think this is the one. This is better. But you're also going to know at that point. And you're not going to be sitting here 3 months from now, like, but should I have or should I not have? Because you're going to take that 5 seconds and you're going to say, no, this is better because look, it does this and this and this. And then we can move on without ever thinking about it again or stressing about it again. I promise you're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay. I want you to disagree with me. Every bit of information I get about you, everything I know about you, every disagreement or agreement is helping me know how to help you a little bit better.